What's up, college sports fans? I'm Stucky.
I'm Colin Wilson.
I'm Mike Calabrese.
I'm Maria Marino.
I'm Charlie DiSturco, and we're excited that the Big Bets on Campus brand is launching its very own YouTube channel.
You'll be able to find every episode of the BBOC podcast, live shows, and other college sports content on this new channel.
Not only will the channel be dedicated to betting on college sports, but you'll also be able to find exclusive interviews with former college athletes,
college football power rankings,
and updates on other topics like the brand new College Football 25 video game series and the ins and outs of the recruiting trail all the way down to the transfer portal.
Whether you're into college football,
college basketball,
college baseball, or any of the college sports,
we are the home for college sports, and BBOC is the channel for you.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I'll see you there.
Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Brandon Anderson, NBA futures analyst, and this is your Pacific Division preview. We're going to get into best bets. We're going to argue. This is one we're going to argue on. We are on opposite sides on a lot of these teams. We'll get into all that. We'll give you best bets. Everything we talk about can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. As a reminder, go to youtube.com/the Action Network. You can catch a video version of this show, all of our live shows, all sorts of great content leading up to football season. You want to check it out, go to youtube.com/the Action Network, hit the like and subscribe. Give me a 5-star review on Buckets while you're sitting there. Just go ahead and mosey on over and give me a 5-star review. Or if you're watching on YouTube, give me a like and a subscribe. All right, Brandon, we're going to start with the Golden State Warriors. We do this, we have a 10-word thesis, and then our bet, lean, pass. What's your 10 words and your bet, lean, or pass on the Warriors?
They hit the offseason. Now it's all on Steph and Draymond. Over 43.5. It is a bet for me. I'm in on the Warriors. Who could have seen it coming?
It's really funny that you missed out the 1 year that I was like so in on them and they won the title. It continues to amuse me that
it's just happened. Warriors FOMO. I got to keep making up for it as penance the rest of my life.
My 10 words are: nostalgia doesn't make you good. I'm a no bet on the Golden State Warriors. So I'll set the stage here with the market. Win total's 43.7 on average, mostly 43.5. There is 144.5 in the market. It's going up a little bit. I've got it projected at 43 flat. Playoffs are yes, minus 115, no, minus 105. They are right on the cusp there. Play-in is plus 150, which is a pretty short number. Seeding 8.5, with the over being minus 120, under plus 100. That's an interesting one. I feel like given that this is a 43.7 on average, or even mostly it's 43.5 where I found that book, having the seeding be at 8.5 juiced over is weird. 50 plus wins, if you want to get aggressive, is plus 330. 55 or more is plus 1,000. You get 10 to 1 if you think the Dubs are going to be a 55 win team this season. Give me the big picture on Golden State for you.
Yeah, the play-in odds one is always tricky because, of course, you can finish above the play-in also. So that's why the numbers don't necessarily always line up that way. Whether they would or not, we'll see. Obviously, the big thing is no more Clay. Goodbye, Clay. The dynasty is over. Clay is gone. Unless, of course, the dynasty has always been Steph and Draymond, first and foremost. The Megatron, then maybe it's still there. CP3 is gone. That did not go great last year. I don't think it was tragic, but it just kind of was a soft move on. They were replaced with Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton. Guys that I think fit this Warriors, in theory, pretty well. The kids are all right. Brandon Podziemski had a really nice season last year, contributed winning minutes for them in a lot of good lineups. Trace Jackson Davis was really good. I had both of those guys first team all rookie. Like, they had really positive rookie seasons. For once, this team got its draft picks right and played them well. Kuminga played, made some positive impacts, made some strides late in the season. So that's where we're at. This is unwittingly in the year that the Warriors finally admitted defeat to the, I forget what they called it, but like the bridge to the future or whatever, the light years.
Two timelines.
There we go. 2 timelines. I feel like they sort of gave up on the 2 timelines, appropriately so. It never worked. I feel like they kind of accidentally got there. We got the old guys. We got the young guys. There's not a lot in between, but there is some stuff here. I know I'm higher on the Warriors than you are, but what do you like about the Warriors?
Steph is still phenomenal. I'm going to talk a little bit about the dip, but he was still phenomenal. He was still 40.8% from three. He's still a plus 0.5.3 in offensive EPM offensively. That's 98th percentile. 62% true shooting. That's 82nd percentile. Breaking, the greatest shooter of all time can still shoot. Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, those are all good players. They are good players. They might even make up for what could have been the regression that you would get from Chris and Clay this season. Like the profile on those guys is substantially lower than Chris Paul and Klay Thompson, but their combined value, if they fit and everything goes to the best of their ability and they stay healthy, they can probably come out close to even, in my opinion, on them. I know you're higher on it. The biggest counter here is just this. Look, Steph Curry and Draymond together last season were still 31-21, a 49 win pace. That's my Fitz stat, because I heard it from Bob Fitzgerald pretty much constantly in Summer League. That's like the model here is like, look, when Steph and Draymond play, they still wanted a 49 win pace. Last season they went under. Last season was rough. Last season was disappointing. Last season they missed the playoffs. Draymond got suspended for a big chunk of the season, and that was a big part of it. And so you add in injuries and everything else on top of it, and that's why they went under. And then they're much closer to the idea is that they're much closer to that team than they are to the overall record. That is what I like about the Warriors. I will add, I like Trace Jackson Davis. I like Brandon Pajemski. I'm very neutral, soft on Jonathan Kuminga. There's some ups and downs there. I actually think Moses Moody is better. Like, Moses needs to play more, and that's a real problem that Kerr can't find minutes for him. They've talked about moving him, and they haven't been able to find a deal that, like, they're stuck because the guys are too good. They don't have enough room to play some of these young dudes like Moody, and yet they value them too much, and they're too good for them to get appropriate trade value. So they just kind of hang around and are just kind of wasted, and that's a bummer. Okay. Do you want to go over what you most of your big picture was like stuff you liked, but do you have more to go over on what you like about the Warriors?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I like is what you like. I just like it a little bit more than you. I think I would rather have this year Buddy, Melton, and Slow-Mo than Clay and CP. At the stage that they're at, I think that is an upgrade overall from the minutes that you're getting, from the guys that you were bringing in. I think Buddy replacing Clay as a shooter, obviously you can't replace Clay as a shooter, but if you had to do it with somebody in the entire world, Buddy has been as good a shooter as anyone else that's not Steph or Clay out there. I think Melton defensively, what he can bring, like CP just didn't fit. It just didn't work. And what I partly what I liked about CP last year was his potential defense that he was bringing. And I was wrong on that. You called me out on that, and it just didn't come through. Melton's defense, like that's what he is. I think this defense off the bench has potential to be special. I think the defense overall has a lot of potential to be special. So that's the thing I really like here. You talked about like the Draymond swing, and you get to respond to this, but I'm going to make the first case here. So Draymond stunk for a quarter of the season, was terrible. Then probably in part because of that, got himself suspended for the next quarter of the season. Then on January 23rd, he came back. Here's what happened after that. You said they were good. They were great. They were quietly elite once he came back. They won 28 games. They were 28-14. That is number 2 on the board in wins, behind only Boston. They're 4th in net rating. They're top 8 offense and defense. And by the way, 42 games. That's half of a season. So for half of the season, they're top 8 offense and defense, number 4 net rating. Defensive rating, 111.4 with Draymond back versus 117.7. So from 118 to 111, that's how much the defense switched. They jumped from 17th to 4th in EFG defensively. They jumped almost 10 spots in turnovers and in free throws defensively. Draymond is still that dude defensively. Like he's not what he could have been because athleticism and age and all those things, but like he was that good. Now you get Melton and Kyle Anderson, who I think are 2 of the best bench players in the league. Gary Payton, if he can ever play, definitely is in that mix as well. I think the defensive potential here is very high. So you know the drill. I played defensive teams in the regular season. It's a high floor. Defense travels. And like you said, when Steph and Draymond are right, this team is still very, very good, bordering on elite until proven otherwise. I'm betting on the defense here. You don't necessarily agree with my Draymond profile interpretation of where that went. So I'm going to lean that into what you don't like, and you can kind of respond to my Draymond thing as well.
Yeah, so a couple of things here. I think one is I worry with specifically with you because you have a very polarizing, very strong opinion about Klay Thompson. And I was actually kind of surprised because I figure you'd be very high on Klay because he's a member of the Warriors and you love the Warriors. But what you really love is like you're one of like you're a Steph guy. And so it's like Steph is the sun and beautiful and amazing. And like Draymond does the defense, and so he covers even though Steph's probably better than you think defensively. And it's like and Klay Thompson deserves none of the credit. And I'm kind of like, no, like Klay was like a vital part of the dynasty. Now, last year he sucked defensively, and there's really no way for me to argue against that, and that was pretty apparent. But what Klay was still bringing in terms of overall impact by the overall metrics and game by game, there were nights when it was like, man, Klay was awesome tonight. And then it was like, man, Klay was terrible tonight. Man, Klay was awesome tonight. Man, Klay was awful tonight. It was a real roller coaster. But the overall profile is that he still helped them win a lot of games. And if you look at the replacement options, none of those guys really helped their teams win a lot of games. And they weren't on bad teams. Kyle was on the Wolves, and Melton was on the Sixers. He had a back injury. I'm willing to give Melton like a huge break there. I think DeAnthony's great. Buddy is a little bit more of a concern because Buddy went from bad teams to bad teams, and then when he got on a good team, it was like, oh no, this might not be doable. So like,
they
I have
didn't
a
even play
lot
him in the playoffs. He just watched the playoffs.
I am concerned about the Buddy Hield because on the surface, it's like you're putting the guy that has made the second most threes in the league over the last 4 years next to the guy that's made the most in the league over the last 4 years and of all time. But if Buddy can't do the motion offense, which takes a lot of reads, that gets dicey, and that's a significant addition. Kyle's not going to help you shoot in threes, so there's a big drag there on the offensive side. Kyle's defense is a little bit all over the place. I like Kyle a lot for I loved how he fit with Minnesota. He ran into a bad matchup with Denver, and he wasn't really playable in that series. And then, like, I actually thought he should have played more versus the Mavericks. I thought they made a mistake not playing him more versus Dallas. The Draymond side is it's really not like I wrote several posts about the Warriors early in the season that was, oh no, Steph and Draymond are losing their minutes. This is a catastrophe. And I don't care that it was short sample because it was several months. Like it was to December when I was still writing, hey, they're losing the Draymond Steph minutes. They are being, and this is what's interesting is the Chris Paul thing. Chris was amazing and awesome. And the bench unit is the only reason they stayed afloat the first 3 months of that season. Was Steph did Steph stuff, but Chris and that bench unit were killing it and playing really well. And that countered how rough the starters in particular were. Steph was good because Steph, but the bench unit was doing a lot of the lifting. Then by the end of the season, like if you go through the EPM chart or any of the metrics, you're going to notice that like, it's like Chris Paul up, he gets hurt, he's up, and then like whoop and down. And Chris just fell off the map. And that makes sense for them to move on at that point. So, like, I don't mind that. And it's like Melton, Anderson probably replace what Chris was at the end, but they won't replace what he was at the beginning. And that balance, I don't know where that shakes out at. Draymond comes back and they turn into this beast, and the Ringer is writing profiles about how they can win the title, and everyone's betting overs, and everyone's going nuts for them. And it's all very, very, very good. And I bet the overs. I bet them to make the playoffs because I already had like a big number on them to miss. So I was able to be like, oh, I can lock in a profit at a really good number here. I went back and bet them again when they were minus to miss again. Like it was a really fun roller coaster with the Warriors last year. But the reality is like, I get they didn't fall off a cliff again to where they were as bad at the beginning of the season. But it's really just Draymond comes back to the All-Star break. They killed teams and looked like a juggernaut. And then after they were back to like, pretty good team. Pretty good. Not good enough to get out of the play-in. Not good enough to make the playoffs. But like, pretty good. And so now like the question here is, what does this mean for going forward? The other thing I'll say about stuff I don't like, Steph dipped last season for the first time that I can recall. Yeah. That there was like a very definite like, oh no, and I mean this in a very impact way where it's like very literally I am being very serious. Usually when Steph's on the floor, life is beautiful. He is the sun. Like when he shines on you, everything blooms. And by the end of the season, that wasn't happening as much. And that makes me very worried for a guy in his mid-30s. I'm not saying that Steph's going to fall off and shoot 34% from three this season. I'm saying the impact that he may not, that last year was his worst EPM, and since 2013, and that his teams may not, they went from killing teams when he was on the floor to being very much better when he was on the floor to being better when he was on the floor. And we're heading in that direction, and that changes a lot of the profile of what Steph's possible. I don't buy Kuminga as a centerpiece. He had this month, and it was like he deserved to play and was feuding with Steve Kerr and trade demands and blah, blah, blah. And then by the end of the season, he was just a dude again. And Jonathan Kuminga just doesn't move me in that way. I like Trace Jackson-Davis. I love Pajemski. I think they're good. Are they like huge impact players? Maybe they make a jump in their second season, and it's like, no, they like made the leap. That's very possible. I'm not opposed to buying in, but I do think that the trademark stuff for Lauri, I'm going to let you talk in a second. I know I've gone long. That this trade stuff for Lauri is indicative. If you are invested in talking to the Jazz, even if you're like, we're not going to include Kuminga, but you're looking to give up as many assets as they did for Lauri Markkanen, what does that tell you about where you are with the remnants of this dynasty? Because to me, it says we need an upgrade major now because this team's not good enough. And that makes me very worried. It's an opportunity. It's not a panic trade that they were trying to pull off, but they were looking for a major shakeup with a guy they would have to give up major assets for. And maybe he helps win them a title. That's the upside of it. But that to me also indicates a little bit of like, yeah, we're good, but like, how good are we in the West? And the final thing, Kerr's time is running out. Everyone's turned on him. The internet hates him. Warriors fans want him fired. Draymond's criticizing his Team USA coaching openly on the podcast. That makes me very worried because I attribute a lot of the Warriors' success to Steve Kerr. And if everyone's tuning him out, that's a bad sign for where this is going to go. Those are the things I don't like. I want you to respond to those concerns.
Yeah.
And then you can say what you don't like.
So I think the marketing thing is interesting because I totally understand your point that can be framed as, all right, we're not good enough. We need to go get Markkanen. And I think if you're if you're the Warriors of the last decade, championship or bust Warriors, that is the framing. They're not good enough to win a championship. I am not buying championship or West futures for the Warriors. No, thank you. That's not this team. However, you could also frame it the other way. Why trade everything? Why give away your future pieces for a guy unless you think you're at least good enough to be in the mix of things because Steph and Draymond aren't done yet? I don't think you do the trade if you don't feel like you're at least in the mix of things, if you don't feel like Steph and Draymond have something there still. So I think you can go both ways on that. I'm with you on Kuminga. I'm not a Kuminga guy. I also, like, my lead point on what I don't like, I don't really know where he fits on this team. Like, I sort of feel like they have to start him. I don't love that. I kind of like his energy off the bench. That's the best thing I like about him is just energy. He plays with a high motor. It's not a compliment you want to lead with about like the future of your franchise. High motor. You can try hard. Got to have some other stuff. I don't really feel like he's kind of figured like the Warriors mentality out yet. If you play him, he's probably the 4. So now Draymond is your starting center. That's not great. Draymond's 34 this year. Like, that's a lot of mileage to put onto Draymond all year long. I know he's good there, but it's a lot of mileage. What happened with Kevon Looney is he just cooked and out now. He kind of was up and down last year. What happened with Buddy? I don't know. Do they start Buddy? Do they bring him off the bench? Is he a 6-man sort of candidate? If he starts and plays full minutes, I got to tell you this. That bet that we make every single year about Steph to lead the league in threes, the free money bet, I might not make that if Buddy Hield is starting. Like, I think that is at risk for them if Buddy is starting, because the thing I'm worried about on this team is the offense, which is weird because it's the Warriors and it's Steph. How can you be worried about the offense? They averaged over the last 4 years, so not counting the year Steph missed pretty much the whole season, counting the year they won the championship, they averaged 13th in offensive rating. That's not great. That's not what we think the Warriors are. But if you look at just offensive rating year by year, They went from 111 to 113 to 16 to 18. They are improving. And that means last year's offense was the best version of the 4 years. Why? Because it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't look like it from the guys we had. Well, I think the profile changed. I'm going to give Kerr a little credit here. They went up on offensive rebounds. And most importantly, again, we think of the Warriors from this whole era of Warriors as this incredible juggernaut offense bombing threes. They got caught and passed in three-pointers. They have not been a leading three-pointers team. I know it's Steph, but outside of Steph, they're not taking a ton of threes. Last year, that switched, and they started taking more threes, and that's why I actually get really excited for Buddy on this team, that he could actually hit a lot of those threes, because you're right about Steph. It's not the same Steph anymore. I think, to me, the biggest decline was his 2% last year. He was not able to finish anymore at the rim. That's a thing that fits when you're turning 36 this season. And look, we just watched the Olympics. We saw Steph quite literally bring America a gold medal over the last 2 games. We also saw him do nothing for the entire Olympics before that. All matters. That all matters, because the point of Steph Curry at his peak is you got Steph Curry every night. Steph Curry right now, you get the gold medal game and you get the 4-minute stretch, but you also got the 7-point game when he just didn't get it going and couldn't get separation. Like, it's how it goes. That's age. Like we've talked before about superstardom. Superstardom is not about can you reach the height. It's can you reach it often enough? Can you keep getting there? And to me, that's what's missing is Steph. The height's maybe not quite there anymore, but more important, he's not getting there enough times. So the concern on the team is this. Like I said in the thesis, I like what they did, but it's still all Steph and Draymond. If Steph is out, this offense is screwed. They are screwed beyond belief without Steph. He's so important offensively, and Draymond is just as important defensively. So that's not great for guys that are 36 and 34. That's what I don't like about the team is it's very easy to figure out why this goes sideways, because things go sideways for basketball players when they're 36 and 34, no matter how all-time great that they are individually and together. So I don't know that the high-end outcomes are there. I don't think that I would have even thought I'd be in on the Warriors this season. The number is the key here at 43.5, because I think your hesitation on the Warriors is thinking, are they still a 48-win team, a 50-win team? That's around where I have them, but it's a high end for me. I don't know that we need to have that question. We need to ask, are they a 43 or 44-win team? And that's a different question than we've been thinking about with this team. And that's why I think it's still an over for me.
So I said that this is a no bet for me. I can make all the argument, but I'm not in a place where I think that the under is the play here. I'm not in a place where I think that that's like the move to make. And I'm not like excited to really fade this team and go all the way out on them. I have them projected right at the number at 43. And if that's healthy, then that's probably low and I need to bump them up. I think one of the worries is like, okay, they have a median outcome season. Steph misses a stretch of games because he's done that the last couple of years. Like that has happened. Draymond misses some time with injury, even if he doesn't get suspended, which is not off the table. Let's be honest. And they wind up, but they are projected as basically like a 45-win team, 46. Like that's not bad, right? Like we're talking. You said like, well, are they a 47-win team? I just think that the drop from 46 to 43 is pretty easy, and I find that there are outcomes. Part of it too is the last 2 seasons there have just been stretches where it's like the Warriors are a 500 team. Like that's just what they look like night to night. That's what their record would say that they are. Like they're just 500. And you kind of, when we were going back and forth on Slack, you were like, you really think the Warriors are a 500 team? And I was like, yes. Like, I don't think that they are. I think that they play like it for long stretches of the season. And that's the problem is like, what's going to reinvigorate them this season? What's going to refine the magic? What's going to be the element that makes all this go? It's not going to be Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton.
No, it's not.
It might be Trace Jackson Davis and Brandon Pajemski. It might be Jonathan Kuminga if we're wrong on him. Like that's possible. But like finding something that's going to be like, man, the Warriors are just kicking ass again. I honestly felt like that stretch in January was unsustainable. Like it just didn't feel very.
It was Draymond coming back. I think the pre-suspension was not who the Warriors were because Draymond was playing so badly. But I think that's fair to say the immediate after is not who they can be for 82 games, because Draymond came back pissed and was like, I'm going to show you what player I am still. We don't know that we get that for 82 games. And I think that that's a fair point also.
And like, I don't want to bet on playoffs again is minus 105 to the no. That doesn't interest me at all. Like, I don't want that. Right. And it's got to be there because of where the win total is.
Yeah.
I don't have any interest in it, but it's very hard for me to be like, yeah, no, like I'm in. This team's going to be good this season, especially with the Western Conference. There's teams I like a lot more, I think, is part of that equation too. I will go over to like some of the numbers real quick. Teams that won more than 40 games and missed the playoffs. I was interested in this one. So like, you're better than 500 and you still didn't make it. 11-8 to the over. It's not a huge sample. It's not a huge differential, but it's a little bit of a lean there. Top 10 offenses. It's funny because you're all in on the defense and worried about the offense. And last year they were 10th in schedule adjusted offense, 15th in defense. I'm not saying they're going to be that this season, but it's like, that's what they were. Sure. Top 10 offenses with a win total below 45. So like, you can cook and your win total is not necessarily all that high. 16-9 to the under, actually, which the kind of signal I got from that is like, sometimes the market knows when it's like, yeah, no, you should be good, but you're not. Top 10 offenses and top 15 defenses with a win total below 45 or 6-3 to the under, very small there. That's all the only kind of stuff I could find on them. Nothing really meaningful. I would just kind of point out that like a lot of this too is they play in the toughest conference. They play in the toughest, and not the toughest division. They play in one of the tougher divisions. And here's another one. Their home road splits have been
real weird last year.
Insane.
Yeah,
so,
Warriors take me home third quarter died real hard last year.
So here's what's crazy. The year before, they couldn't win on the road. And Kerr was like, don't worry about it. It's nonsense. There's nothing really to that. And then last year, they struggled at home. And they got great on the... like. Again, those are little things where I'm like, this is a team that is losing its identity in terms of consistency. And that's a big red flag for me. So you don't want the playoff stuff. But are there other ways you want to play the Warriors on top of just the win total?
So I'm considering, but I'm going to have to come back to it because I'm looking at the division odds. I'm thinking about it still. I'm going to decide as we go along here because I don't think that this is actually one of the strongest divisions. I am very down on three of the teams three of the four left that we haven't gotten to here. So that's part of it. A couple of Warriors numbers too I want to add in before I go past it. One trend, again, small sample here. But Steve Kerr, since the first Kevin Durant year, so just like the recent Warriors teams, 5-2 to the under. That checks out to me because like that's the Warriors getting a Warriors tax, and that's the Warriors just trying to get to the playoffs and win some games. So I don't love that to take an over here. Last 4 years, the Warriors won a title one time. The other 3 years, they won 44 to 66 games on win pace. So the win number here is 43.5. That's like, it's right there. I don't know. I don't think this is going to be comfortable. I don't think you're going to be sweating out this one because you're going to get some stretches. You mentioned the 500 play. I think you can be a 500 team for 3/4 of the year. If you get that one quarter of the season when you're a really good Warriors team, you're still going to go over 43.5 if you get that. Now you're not. If a different quarter, Steph and Draymond are out and you stunk and that canceled out the other one. So I get that. But division odds I see as plus 450. That's in range for me. They're not my division leader. We're going to come back to that because of another team. Just the over I have to play. They're at Basketball Reference, I expected 47 wins last year. They won 46. I think the roster got better. I think they're going to get more Draymond this year. They're not the old Warriors, but it's still a good team. I think the number is just a little bit low. 43.5. I don't think we're getting a Warriors tax in there. So I have to bet the over. And when we get to another team I like, we'll talk about the division angle I might still be playing as well.
All right, we'll wait on that team. We're going to have the Lakers here real quick. Give me your 10 words on the Lakers.
Wait, you're really just running back this roster and praying under 45.5, bet and full send. I love this under. Lakers tax, I'm on the under. I am fading. I feel like you are opposite me on this one. What are your 10 words?
Brandon likes Steph Curry and doesn't like LeBron James. Man, I can't believe it. What a plot twist. Mine is sometimes you need risky overs. I'm taking an over 45.5, 2-unit play. Not a major send, not a full send for me, but I am going to play the over on it. 45.5 in the most part in the market. I did find a 43.5 on Wednesday morning, and I bet that. I project them at 48.4, so I'm very much above this number. Division plus 425. Seeding is 8.5. Over is minus 135. Under is plus 110. Playoffs, yes, minus 105. No, minus 115. They're right on the bubble, which makes sense for a team that was in the play-in tournament the last 2 years. Play-in tournament is plus 145. They are expected to be a play-in team again. It's one of the shorter numbers in that market. Give me, you kind of mentioned it, like they brought everybody back, but go ahead and give me the big picture on the Lakers.
Yeah, I think that we're thinking of the Lakers a little bit off here. I think LeBron and Anthony Davis were awesome last year. I think they were so good. I had, at the end of the season, when I went back and reviewed, I had LeBron on my MVP ballot. He was 5th on my MVP ballot at age 39 with what I thought was the worst season of LeBron's career since his sophomore year. And he still is a top 5 MVP player. He was awesome at the Olympics. It was awesome to watch. LeBron is awesome. He played 71 games. It's his most since he left Cleveland. Anthony Davis, I had top 10 on the MVP ballot. He played 76 games. They were awesome. The rest of the roster sucks. I think this is a 2-man team. I don't know what you're doing running back the rest of these guys. There are, I think, 3 other guys on the roster that are like fine and capable. And then it really falls off after that. They got rid of Prince and Dinwiddie. They brought in Dalton Connect and Bronny. Obviously, the big change here, the real not running it back change. Darvin Ham is out. Our podcast buddy, JJ Redick, is in. Matt, me and you might be NBA coaches someday. I like this trend. I want good things for JJ. They don't have their pick this year. They can't tank. Not a thing that Lakers fans are thinking about anyway. It's fine. Who needs picks? The Lakers have shown no ability to draft or develop guys anyway. Totally fine. I think this is a 2-man team with a broken roster that doesn't make sense, that they just ran back. And I don't understand that.
Okay. I'm going to go over the good. Here's what I like about the team. They were 7th in half-court offense last year. Top 10 in half-court offense. They were 14th in half-court defense. Now, as an agenda driver, I must note that why if the Lakers employ the greatest defensive player of all time, why were they 14th in half-court defense? And it's not because Anthony Davis was not on the floor when they sucked. They were bad when he was on the floor. They were actually a little bit better defensively in some circumstances with him off the court. You mentioned LeBron, 98th percentile in EPM, 98th on offense, 84th on defense still. He was 84th percentile at the rim. You just talked about how like you get older and it's harder for you to finish. Nope, 69% from at the rim. He was also 41% from 3-point range. Oh, and he was 98th percentile in assist percentage. Just an insane, just an unbelievable season. Just insane human being. 80 was 93rd percentile in both offense and defense in EPM. He was 91st percentile at the rim, shooting 71%, and he shot 41% from mid-range, which is not good, but it's fine. So here's the big key. When Rui Hachimura, who had injuries and was in Ham's doghouse and coming off the bench, and the lineups were all messed up, and Lakers fans went apeshit over it. When Rui and LeBron played, the Lakers were 35-23, a 49-win pace. When Rui, LeBron, and AD played, they were 34-19, a 53-win pace. 53 versus our number here. Coaching should be an upgrade. I'm torn. I was told that Ham sucked by everyone in the world. I personally am like, he took him to a conference finals and he got him into the playoffs with D'Angelo Russell as his point guard. I think Ham is probably a little underrated in terms of how badly he was ripped up to shreds. But if the consensus, which wasn't just Lakers fans, but there were some analysts that felt the same, if the consensus was that he is that bad, most analytics folks that work in the league have told me this, that bad coaching is worth about 2 wins, will drag you down on average about 2 wins. Elite coaching will pull you up about 2 wins. That may not sound like a lot. It's not. That's the point. That's why they don't care about coaching as much. But if Ham was holding them down, then we get like a little bit of a bump here, and that I think helps a little bit. They went 500 last season without LeBron, but with Rui and AD. So when LeBron's not able to go, they still went 500. The Lakers had some of the worst injury luck last season to their supporting players. I push back on it. when Lakers fans complained. I was like, you got all these games from LeBron and AD. What are you bitching about? I can't talk out both sides of my mouth here when I talk about how important chemistry, continuity, and how you play together is, about building the right lineups and finding the right chemistry and playing the synergy that you need to play basketball well in the NBA, and then say it doesn't matter if the role players miss games. They missed everybody. Vando, Gabe Vincent, who covered up a lot of the defensive stuff. Rui was a massive miss for them. They had to add Spencer Dinwiddie halfway through the season. They missed significant guys that would have helped them build rhythm and continuity. LeBron was very honest about this and said, like, injuries there, and it sounds like an excuse, and I get it. But this team also won enough games for them to be within range of the 6th seed last year, despite all that. My thesis here is that LeBron and AD can play fewer games, but with better overall health, they can still win enough to get over this number. That's what I like about it. What do you like about the Lakers?
I mean, it's the Lakers. Everything's always coming up Lakers. I like that. If you're going to bet the Lakers, you want them to be the Lakers. I like that the Lakers win free throws. They were elite free throw margin, both directions. That certainly is a thing that should sustain because of the guys they have and because of the colors that they are wearing. A thing I like about JJ Redick potentially, the Lakers were third to the last in 3-point attempts last season. They were 8th in 3-point percentage. Could JJ Redick get this team shooting a little bit more? Now, I don't know that this is a top 10 3-point percentage team. Maybe you shoot a few more shots. The percentage evens out. I think LeBron had an outlier 3-point percentage season. But there's some room for growth there offensively. Defensively, I'm a little more optimistic. That should be what this team is with Anthony Davis. I think Vando and Vincent are going to help only on one side of the ball if they do, and that would be defense. Our guy Anthony Davis, outside the top 10. The Lakers have been outside the top 10 in defense each of the last 3 years, average 16th over that span. So average, below average defense over the last 3 years, with our top 75 of all time, Anthony Davis, leading the way on that end. I do think there's another move coming. I'm not positive that means I like another move, but they got the 29 and the 31 picks, 2029 and 31. I think D'Angelo Russell is the salary move because you got to move some salary to bring something in. There's been a lot of talk about Jeremy Grant. And so basically trade 1 or 2 picks, D'Lo, a couple guys for Jeremy. I don't really know what that means for this roster. Like, is LeBron playing point guard again now? You're already playing Hachi and LeBron and Davis. That's 3 dudes who play 2 positions, in my opinion. Jeremy Grant is also in those same positions. Like, he's a 4 to me. Like, you can't play those 4 guys together. I don't really know what you're doing. I think D'Lo was actually the Lakers' 3rd best player last year. I know the numbers, the lineup data you have really likes Hachi, but D'Lo is really good individually, not in the playoffs. But I don't know. There is a move coming. I don't know where it leaves them. Hopefully it improves them. That's the point of making a move. What don't you like about the Lakers?
So my big thing is Austin Reeves.
Yeah.
I thought Reeves was bad last year. Some of the numbers kind of say that it's more positive, but I mean, it was not good overall with him. And particularly on the defensive end, he was 10th percentile defensively. One of the problems is that essentially he's a point guard, but you have to play D'Lo. And you can play Austin, but not D'Lo, and that's okay. And you can play D'Lo and not Austin. And like you said, that's actually okay because of how good D'Lo was offensively last year. What you can't do is you can't play Austin and D'Lo together. That's the real problem. And so if you don't play him, now there's nowhere to put him. Then you have to shift to like a small ball lineup. And now Rui's not playing, and Reeves is undersized at 3. Like, it just gets really messy. There's not really a place for Austin Reeves with how the roster is constructed. And that's a real problem when they believe in him the way that they do. So like, that is one, I think, of the concerns that I have. How about this? AD, Reeves, and Russell without LeBron. Without LeBron and Rui, I'm sorry. When you take AD, Reeves, because the starting 5 everybody wanted is D'Lo, Austin, Rui, LeBron, and AD. That's the one that the Lakers fans wanted because that was what took them to the conference finals, and they were mad that Ham didn't play it. If you take out LeBron and Rui from that combo, they played 150 minutes, which is not a huge amount. It's also not nothing. They had a 132 defensive rating. Again, I ask you, how is the best defensive player on the planet allowing that kind of number? And then like the biggest thing is just like, look, if LeBron and AD go back to normal health markers, or what you'd expect for a 40-year-old and AD at this point in his career after he played so many, if they go back to that, particularly if they missed games in the same stretch, imagine LeBron misses 3 weeks when AD misses 3 weeks. They're going to get crushed. They're going to get killed if they don't play just Eastern Conference teams. And that has to be like the biggest concern here. I'm not insensitive to that part of it. I am saying that you have to counterbalance some of that LeBron AD positive health regression with an awareness of exactly how bad the role player health was last season. What don't you like about the Lakers?
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar spot. I'm just pushing both of those things you just said a little bit further toward the outliers. I agree. The role players were not healthy last year. I just don't think the role players are very good. I just don't think they're very good. Now, I'm not talking here about the 3, 4, 5. We talked about D'Lo. We talked about Hachimura. We talked about Reeves. I think Reeves is a little better than he was last year. I think D'Lo's a little worse. I think Hachimura is fine. I think those are rotation guys. Not about those guys. You got 5 guys now. NBA teams need more than 5 guys. I don't think Vando or Vincent are very great. They are good defenders. They haven't been healthy in their careers. Vincent's advanced numbers have not been good ever, really. Cam Reddish has not been good. Max Christie, they signed him up long-term. He hasn't really done much yet. Jackson Hayes has not been good. Bronny is not an NBA player yet. Maybe someday. Dalton Connect did not really super impress in Summer League for a guy that is older and supposed to be ready to come in and look good right away. You want him to not look that way in the summer. There's just not a lot of guys here. There's not a lot of options. So if the roster mostly is a 2-man roster with 3 more guys and then nothing after that, now LeBron turns 40 this year. Coming off, still for LeBron, a top 5 MVP season, but his worst season in 2 decades, his lowest usage since rookie season, his worst defensive rating ever, and an outlier 3-point percentage that, look, we got a lot of LeBron data. I don't think he just magically learned how to shoot threes last year. I think we probably just kind of got a little luck there. I think that offset a more noticeable drop that might have happened. The Lakers have had LeBron for half a decade now. They have not had a top 10 offense yet with LeBron on the roster at any point. They've not finished the year with a top 10 offense. They have finished 15th or worse 4 straight seasons on offense. So here's where I'm at. Last year, they got 71 LeBron games. They got 76 Anthony Davis games. That is the 100th percentile outcome of what they could get health-wise from those guys. They played top 10 MVP ball in those games. They finished 1 win above the 10 seed in the West. I expect them to get 20 to 30 games less of LeBron and Davis. That is what the injury regression expects, just looking at their typical career years. That's not me saying I think they're injury prone, they're going to get hurt. That's just what are you getting on an average year? And if you take a roster that is 2 elite guys and give me 25 less games of them, 3 regular dudes, and a bunch of other stuff that the other stuff all has to play those missing 25 games, that's not going to go well for a team that only barely stayed above the 10 seed. Now, look, in the West, the 10 seed was very high last year, but we're pricing accordingly too. The number is very high here also. So to me, this is a reminder that basketball is not a 1-man game or a 2-man game. It is a roster game in the regular season. And I am not betting against LeBron and Davis. I am betting against the guys that are on the rest of the roster. And I don't think they're good enough to sustain the Lakers when LeBron and Davis can't do everything.
I think so much of it for me is trying to fight against my impulses, which are, I don't like the rest of the supporting roster, but there's a difference between not liking them as independent players in a vacuum and then not liking them as how they fit around these two. And the key there is like, do you think they fit around great? And I'm like, no, they just don't fit around them terribly. It's not an awful fit. I've seen great players that do not fit next to guys. And that's not really what this is. Like, they fit pretty well. They haven't. The biggest crime that Rob Pelinka has committed since winning the title is they haven't optimized around LeBron and AD. That's the problem. They haven't optimized around them for a number of reasons. But there's not optimizing, and then there's being good enough with two of these guys being this good at 48 wins. My kind of closing statement is this. If LeBron and AD play the same number as last year, it's an over. If they play slightly fewer, it's an over. If they play fewer but not in the same game, so you've got one of them available, it's probably close, but I'd lean towards an over. If they play fewer and it's the same games, then yeah, it's an under. So I've got, of those outcomes, I will go ahead and I will go with the range of outcomes that leads me to an over, and I will play 2 units on it. Let's go to the Phoenix Suns.
Wait, I got a couple things I need to add to the Lakers. Sorry, I got a couple key numbers here. I know I don't not interrupt, but I got the Lakers just barely inside top 20 offense and defense, but a couple of key stats. You don't have trends on the Lakers. I have trends here because the Lakers, you have to have trends for. LeBron, since his last MVP year in 2013, is 9-2 to the under. LeBron teams don't go over in the regular season because there's a LeBron tax and because LeBron knows what he's playing for. There's a Lakers tax also. The Lakers, since 2009, have not gone over by more than 1.5 wins, ever. That's 15 years that the Lakers tax is in there, that they are just never, ever going over by any amount of comfortable margin in my rating, the way I look at them. So their last year by Basketball Reference, they're expected 42 wins, but they won 47. So sure, they're only 1 win above the 10 seed, but they also played like a 500 club also. Net rating, the last 3 years, 19th, 16th, and 22nd. Those are all 3 below average. They're a below average team aging. When I put them in and I look at my similar team profile, here's the similar teams. I'm not even going to comment on them. I'm just going to list the teams that came out as similar to this profile. 2024 Chicago Bulls. 2023 Washington Wizards. 2022 and 21 DeMar DeRozan Spurs. That's the list. That's what this team is. Missed playoffs is plus 115. I don't want to fade that. I don't want to fade LeBron and Davis in a play-in. I don't need that. I would look at an under 40.5 plus 200. I think if you think things go poorly, I have the Lakers winning 38 games. I have them from 35 to 44 wins, and that is after bumping them up to get there. We are very far off on this one. I'm really eager to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it should be entertaining. I did actually have those trends. I was just moving us along because we're on time, but I did have those 5 of 6 with LA, by the way, 4 straight unders for LA. LA would have been over in 2020. So that one's one of the ones that doesn't count because it got voided by the pandemic. I think we've talked enough about him. I just think that there is a significant, I will say that this number does not scream Lakers tax to me. Like, I can always identify that. Like, I've pointed out a million times about the Lakers tax. 45.5 for this squad does not scream Lakers tax to me.
That's interesting. You and I are both, we just did 2 teams so far on this podcast. And I said, this is just the Warriors. There's not a Warriors tax on there. I just like the Warriors. Play the over. And you said, this is just the Lakers. There's no Lakers tax on there. Just play Lakers over. We're probably both wrong. There's probably a tax on both of them. We just like the teams we like.
That's true. Phoenix Suns. What are your 10 words for the Suns?
Coach Bud is the exact right man for this job. I'm over 46.5. I love Bud. I'm on alts. I'm on the division. I'm all in. And the regular season, Phoenix Suns this year.
Mine is, why do we all like them so much? That's mine. I'm going to wait for preseason and probably bet an over. It's over or nothing for me. Here's what's really fascinating is I know that Brandon and Joe and Jim are in alignment on this Suns angle. And it's the biggest reason I have to not bet the over is the Bud stuff is as a guy that I feel like understands Mike Budenholzer very well and was ahead of the curve on him in Milwaukee, where that was my biggest position was Bucks over and all these Bucks title positions and Giannis MVP. I killed on Giannis MVP that first season. This is not the perfect fit, but we'll get there. 47.1 win total is the average. There's still 46.5s in the market, by the way. But there's a few 47.5s. It's moving over. So there's not just Action Network, but most people are in on the Suns. They're the division favorite at plus 210. Seeding is 6.5. It's minus 125 to the over, plus 105 under. That might wind up being my best bet here. Is just like Suns under 6.5 seeding. The 1 seed is 20 to 1. Play-in is plus 145. Playoffs, yes, is minus 210. No is plus 170 if you want to go the other route. Give me the big picture.
Yeah, they threw a lot of crap at the wall last year on the roster, and pretty much none of it stuck. But this year, I really like the roster moves that they made. I think they really added meaningful names to the roster. Mason Plumlee instead of Drew Eubanks, I think is a significant change for them. Mason Plumlee is good. Tyus Jones, they got him for free instead of Eric Gordon, basically. That's a big upgrade. They got Monty Morris. That's a nice player. It's a nice player is something they didn't have a lot of last year. I thought last year, like we just talked about the Lakers, I thought the supporting cast last year is the way I feel about the Lakers guys, where it's just like not even replacement level guys. That's what the Suns had. We on this podcast last year, we talked about all the guys. We got excited for Keita Bates-Diop and all the different guys. None of it panned out. Like it did not go. You got Tyus and Plumlee and Monty that are good players, and you got Rice O'Neal from last year, who they had already, but they had the whole season. I think he's really good for them and was really good last year too. So you got an expensive roster, most expensive in the league. We have a willing owner who's paying for it. You have no pick to tank. You're all in. Like you're going for this. This is what you got. You're pushing. They'll make a move if they need to. The Suns want to win. I think they actually made real moves to add to the roster that are going to help this team and raise the floor a lot this year.
All right, here's what I like about the Suns. They were 9th in offense, 14th in defense. Despite all of the problems I have with their offensive structure, they still finished really highly because guess what? They can shoot the fucking lights out. They were 11th in half-court offense, 12th in half-court defense. They were actually really well built for playoff basketball. They just happened to run into a Wolves team that was, at the time, an absolute buzzsaw and very well built to beat them if they made adjustments, which is what we talked about in the preview, and they did. Tyus, like you mentioned, he's a great get. My offseason ins and outs come up with a number for the differential. I had the Suns as slightly worse, but a lot of that is that I think that Tyus Jones is essentially facing Wizards tax on him. That his numbers aren't as good as they should be because nobody's numbers are going to be good on the Wizards. And Monte played for Detroit, so there's part of that as well, sure. Right? Monte, but I will say, like, I don't know if Monte's a plus.
Yeah,
Mason
he's fine.
I like Mason a lot as a backup center. He's just, it's very hard to argue from a metric standpoint that he's like going to be an impact like it's fine, it's good, but like I think you're going way too far with looking at those three guys and being like that's a big up. Like it's fine. And your bigger point is you're like the guys before sucked.
Yes, that's exactly it.
And I'm very much like the guys before were not great. These guys are a little less not great. And so we have like slightly less not great, closer to a little not terrible. It's tough. Like, I don't know where to kind of come out on it, but like it is an upgrade. How about this? When they had the big three, because they did miss Book and Beal for the early part of the season, they were 26-15 with the big three. It's a 52-win pace. Now they absolutely crushed a late season tough schedule where we were all like, oh man, the Suns schedule is a nightmare. They're going to just get killed. And I was like, I don't know. Sometimes these teams respond, and they did. They were a 38-23, a 51-win pace when they just had Book and KD. Like, Book was the one that missed games last year. Book plays. They're going to be in a much better spot. They were 7-9 versus West playoff teams, including the wins versus the Wolves. So that actually gets a little bit worse when you think that they swept the Wolves, and it's like, okay, they weren't great. But they competed with a lot of these teams. They got a great signature win late in the season versus the Nuggets. So, like, KD's still awesome. He really is. He was so good last year to the point where like I've thought a lot about how good is Kevin Durant historically as an individual basketball player. They still wound up in the playoffs. They still wound up with a top 10 offense. There's all these kind of things. So I get it. Like I like those things. What do you like about the Suns?
I actually think KD was not awesome last year. I actually think KD has some upward mobility here. His 2% was down. His free throw rate was down. I think he did not go well with the rule change or the non-rule change adjustment mid-year. If the offensive rating was down, I think Durant, at first I was worried here because I think Durant probably plays a little bit less this year. He played a lot of games last year, played in the Olympics now, but I think we might get a little bit less, but a lot better Durant, actually. I think there's a different, better Durant still in there. Booker, he was great. He was so good at the Olympics. I did not see that coming. I said on Twitter, I would have not had him on the Olympic roster. That looks absolutely foolish now. He was so good. He fit the role. I like to bet on like the youngerish guys to make that Olympic jump when they kind of see what it looks like to get that winning moment. Booker's been there. Booker played in the finals, but I like the idea of a Booker jump. Yeah, I mentioned the minutes. Royce, Tyus, Plumlee, and Monty. I think that's 5,000 minutes of just like replacement level basketball, fine basketball. To me, it's not about those guys. I think those are like 0 BPM or less sort of guys. They're just not -2s and -4s and whatever. And I think that's mostly what they get. A couple of specific things. The Suns had the 4th most turnovers in the NBA last year. Hey, you know how you fix that? Tyus Jones and Monty Morris, who have like historic all-time great assist turnover ratios. They do not turn the ball over. Like that is the one thing those guys do. But so I liked where the roster was going, and how I got here to where I'm all in on the Suns is this is a Bud pick. This is me believing in Bud. So I did a lot of research on it. I know you've been the Bud guy, so I'm gonna let you respond. But here's what I like, what I'm seeing from Bud. So number 1, 10 years as a head coach, Bud has had his team top 6 in 3-pointers 8 out of 10 years. He's also a top 10 pace team usually. That fits what I want from this team. I want Booker and Beal and Durant playing fast, playing offense, and taking threes. That is what this team needs. The Suns were top 5 in 3-point percentage last year. They were bottom 5 in 3-point attempts. Now look, just because I think they should shoot threes and just because Bud thinks they should shoot threes does not mean they're going to shoot threes. Maybe they just won't do it. Maybe that doesn't work. I'm choosing to believe, and if Booker and Beal and Durant shoot threes, because that is what the coaching system is going to ask them to do, they're going to hit a lot of threes. Suddenly, you're a Clippers offense that lived and died by just making a ton of tough shots. Suddenly, I'm a 4 factors guy, you shoot a bunch more threes, your EFG just went up. You're already number 1 in free throws, above the Lakers. Your turnovers are fixing themselves because you brought in Monty and Tyus. So they were number 8 on offense the last 4 years on average. I think this has number 1 offensive potential if they actually get them shooting threes. I think they have number 1 offense potential, and I don't think your eyes would have bugged out like that a year ago at this time. I think most people last year thought this had number 1 offense potential because of the talent that we have at the top of the roster on what I think is a 2-man team, not a 3-man team. Brad Beal is under my don't likes. Defensively, Bud defensive teams in the regular season, really good, usually elite. They do not foul ever. That's a 4 factors thing. They do allow a ton of threes. So I think we're going to see a lot more threes. I think the Suns are going to be more fun this year. Bud maximizes the 4 factors. Like he's always going to be a guy that my formula, the way that I do, wants to fit. Now I will say his defenses tend to rely heavily on 2-point percentage defense. That doesn't make me feel good. This doesn't look like a great defense. The Suns were pretty good on defense last year. Yusuf Nurkic was on my 3rd team all defense. Yusuf Nurkic was awesome last year. They were 6th in 2-point percentage defense. I think Bud, plus what they're already doing, plus Nurk playing well, hopefully, and staying healthy, hopefully, can make this a pretty good defense, like an above average to top 10 sort of defense. I think the offensive potential is very high. I know I'm projecting the Bud thing onto a roster that you're going to tell me doesn't fit, and they're veterans, and maybe they just won't play the way Coach Bud and I want them to play. That's what I like is I didn't really get the roster. I still don't really love the roster. This is not how I would build a team, but if I had these guys and I took what Bud normally does and I crunched them together, whoa, I kind of like where we're cooking here. That's where I'm at. That's what I like about them. Tell me why I'm wrong about Bud.
So let's start on the offense. Vogel, I had concerns of mentioned most people would say this is going to be a great offense. I didn't last year. I went on this podcast and was like, they're not going to shoot enough threes because Vogel never takes enough threes in his offenses. And so the move from Vogel to Bud, the logic is sound here. And you have me interested to where I think I'm probably going to play some tail end outcomes at 55 and 60 wins and go that route. Might take the division too. That's tough for me because where I have some of the other teams, but I might take that too. If you're right, let me put it this way. If your assumptions are right, the logic checks out and I'm with you. So if you're like, they're going to listen to the NBA coach because that's how sports work is players listen to the coaches, then you're right. This is the NBA. And I have a long, expansive history of teams with Kevin Durant specifically not taking enough threes. Yeah. KD's going to do what KD does. KD, this is a philosophical thing with him. It's not that he hates 3-pointers. It's that KD. You want to know why? You mentioned like the Durant stuff. Like I actually didn't think he was great last year. This is a big reason. He was 97th percentile at the rim and 94th percentile from mid range and 89th percentile from 3. While, by the way, being he was also 71st percentile in rebound percentage, 79th percentile in assist percentage. And he was like one of the better defenders on the team. He was awesome last year. But this is a lot of it is KD takes mid-rangers because he makes them at a rate that makes them sustainable. And he's awesome at it. And he trusts that part of his game and his understanding of how to play basketball. Bud's a system guy. That's why it worked with the Hawks. And why it worked with the Bucks, because the Bucks were like a bunch of guys that were like, sure, man, we'll space around Giannis. That sounds great. That makes sense. This is not that. This is a team that feels very confident in how they play basketball. KD, Book, and Beal all have very specific ways that they want to play basketball, and it's why this team has not taken enough threes. And so if we get a median outcome here, this is tough. Like if neither one of us is wrong, that like I don't think that they're going to take, I would say they're going to take more, but if they don't get to Bud levels, that offense isn't going to be quite good enough. I have a lot of concerns here about the drop defense because I worry about teams putting Beal and Nurk in that. He's going to have Nurk about 2 steps too deep, and that's going to open up a lot of easy stuff for teams trying to get into floaters and mid-range stuff and then kicking. Some of the Bucks teams had some problems with 3-point teams in terms of being able to generate the kind of threes because of how they had to defend when their personnel got a little worse on the wings. They started giving up some curious 3-point percentages. Yeah. I have more reasons why this could not work than it won't work. That's why it's still a lean over. If we get into preseason, they're not going to bump this number significantly if in the first 2 preseason games the Suns shoot 45 threes. It won't move. We won't have any sort of movement there. Give me proof of concept. Show me that this team is actually like, we're bought in on Bud. Like we're all in. Like we believe in what Mike Budenholzer brings to this team versus how most people in the league think of him, which is like, yeah, pretty good coach, good guy, like a coach, pretty good coach. And that's honestly not fair to him. But like, you need a lot of deference from this roster. You mentioned Tyus and Monte fixing the turnover problems if they have the ball.
Right. Yeah.
So like, those are some of my concerns. What don't you like about the Suns?
Yeah, similar, like the point guard thing. Are we sure we want a point guard playing on this team? I'm not sure that's what I wanted on this team. I think I'd rather have Royce out there playing some defense and like being a 3-and-D guy. I think you got to play a point guard now, the way the roster is built. Why do I want Booker and Durant having the ball less? I'm not sure I want that, but that's what the roster is. I still don't really get the roster. Like, I think there's a lot of overlapping skill and overlapping weakness here. Brad Beal, I'm out. He's like a 50-game guy. He's not really optimizing the way he should be using on this team because the stuff that he should be doing, they have better versions of doing more of it already in Booker and Durant. So I don't love that. I don't love having to bet on Bradley Beal. I do like Nurkic. He was really good last year, but I don't love betting an over on a team that I have to count on Nurkic and Durant to stay healthy. Now, I think actually if I'm right about the stuff I'm banking on, they can survive a little bit of Durant missing some time, which he's going to at his age. I don't think they can survive Nurkic missing a bunch of time. I think Plumlee can be okay as a backup for a while, but I don't love having to count on Nurk putting in another great season. I have them 3rd on offense, 11th on defense. So that's a 4.5 net rating, a 53-win team, 47 to 56 win range. So do you have trends here? I've got a bunch of other ways to play. Do you have trends before I get into them?
No, the only thing I've really got is Bud is 3-4 in total over under, a win total over under. So he's 4-3 to the under in his career. The first year with the Bucks, he won 60 games versus 48 in a win total. So it was plus 12. His first year with the Hawks was 38 wins versus 39.5. Al Horford got hurt. notably in that season. So that's part of the problem there. And then they followed that up with like an absolute, like that was the year where the Hawks were, the starting five was all stars, etc. So I think I do think that there is kind of like this idea, like, again, I love Mike Budenholzer, and I think that he coaches the right way, and there are a lot of teams that I would like him on because of how he coaches. I do think that the market is largely caught up to him. Like, I think that you're getting priced in here like a 2-win bump of Bud. And honestly, a lot of that is like, Frank Vogel's a really good coach. He won a championship. Frank Vogel's a really good coach. I don't know that the difference between Vogel and Bud should be a difference of 2, even though I like the way the Bud coaches more than Vogel. I'm not sure that should be the case for a number of reasons.
I mean, I would say though, so the number is 46.5. How many wins did the Suns have last year?
Yeah, that's a point. It's a fair point.
They won 49 games. So
Yep.
like if there is a 2-win bump for Bud, then we were pricing this as 44.5. Otherwise, like a 5-6 game drop off. So I don't know. To me, it's a number thing here.
I'm with you. It's like over or nothing. It's just like,
sure,
I have a hard time getting excited about the over.
Sure. So here's where I'm having a hard time with. So my numbers are begging me to do the Grizzlies thing from last year, which is to just go all in all the ways I can. Now, it's not a lot of award stuff here. I will be on Bud for Coach of the Year, I'm sure, based on all the stuff that I've said. But I'm trying to figure out. So I like the Warriors. I like the Suns more. We haven't done Kings Clippers. We'll get to them shortly, but I'm under on those teams. So the market is pricing this division as what you said, one of the better divisions, one of the more competitive ones, with all 5 teams pretty close. Clippers are last. I'm not pricing it that way. I got 2 teams well ahead of the pack that are well in the playoffs. That's the Suns and then the Warriors. Then I have the Lakers, Clippers totally out of it, and I have the Kings like at 500 ball. So that means that I should be really looking at division odds here. So I'm going to talk through some options so you can listen and hear what you might like to play. And Matt, I want you to help me figure out which angles am I playing. Not you. You're not playing any of these, but listeners at home might play some of these. 1 seed is 20-1. I have them at 53 wins. I have another team at 53, and I have the Thunder at 54. I don't think they're going to be the 1 seed. If you're the number 1 offense, which I said was in play, you might be the 1 seed, especially if your defense is competent. I think 20-1 is a bad number, so I think that is in play here. 50 wins or more is plus 225 at BetMGM. So I think you're getting more than double the payout there to go from needing 47 to go over versus 50 to get to the other one. So I think that's a good angle. You mentioned 55 or 60. I think if you're going that high, I'd rather just go for like the 1 seed or something like that, partly because of where I'm on the Thunder. Here's the one I love. Here's the one I know I'm betting. This is on this podcast. This is my favorite bet on this podcast, even though I have bets on overs or unders on 4 of the teams. Dual forecast. So we've talked about this with division. You can go exact 1, 2. Dual forecast is here's the 2 teams that finish first and second. Doesn't matter which order. That's what fits the way I have this division. I got 3 teams out. I got 2 teams in. Dual forecast, Suns, Warriors, either order, top 2 is plus 650 BetMGM. I'm taking that from multiple units. My numbers say that is the way to bet this, that I don't really know which team is better. Now look, I'm a little scared because there's really obvious downside that can make either one of those go awry. So then maybe I just play just the division for Suns and the division for the Warriors. Because here's the crazy thing for me, Matt. If I play both Suns and Warriors division, both of them, I'm getting about a plus 110 implied. I play both together, so just under 50%. I make 90% likely that either the Suns or Warriors win the division. That's an insane number compared to what's out there. But I think if I can play a plus 110 to get what is effectively close to a lock for division, I think I play that because now I just need one of them. And if one of these 2 teams goes bad, at least the other one could still be right, and I can still get a division. I'll lose my dual forecast, but I get that one. So these are the options I've thought through. I got the over, I got the 50 wins, I got the 1 seed. I love the dual forecast. I'm looking at the division. If you're me, if you like where I'm at, Matt, which one of these or what sticks out as a good bet, or which of those do you feel like are not the way to do this?
I think based off of ROI, given how far we are and there's so much risk, I think you need to not do betting them both for the division, even though you've got it at whatever the number is. Like I think I still think the plus 650 dual forecast is the way to go. I think that gives you a really good number at 650. That's 6.5 return. If you're right that the rest of the conference, what you're betting is these two teams will be good. These three teams will not be great.
Right.
And that's like your most confident position. I think that plus 650 is the way to go. I very specifically, like, I'm going to bet the 60 plus wins. And it's very different for you and I, because you don't think that the Thunder are going to be up there. So that puts them in the 1 seed. I don't want to mess with another team. Like, what if the Grizzlies, what if, like, we're going to talk about Memphis next week. What if Memphis winds up winning 63 games? What if the Wolves wind up winning 61? What if the Nuggets click or make a trade? There's so many things that it'll open up to, versus if you're just like, the Suns have a really big tail end. They have a high floor and a high tail end. I'm taking the 60 plus on an escalator. That to me is how I'm going to approach
What's
it.
the number on the 60?
60 plus at BetMGM King of Sportsbooks is 16-1.
Okay. Yeah, so I think for listeners, where I'm going to land, and I'll log it in the app so you can see exactly on units and everything. I don't have it just right now. I think that I'm not going to go Grizzlies on this one. And God forbid anyone go Grizzlies after what we did last year. Like, well, let's just get that out of the vernacular. But I think this is not the spot to go all in on Suns and Warriors. I think that I have a good read on this. I like where it's at. I think the dual forecast is the right way to play it. But that probably means maybe play that aggressively, but don't play 8 other angles and try to hit everything. I think the hit everything is the dual forecast. So I may go light on a couple of these other things, but I think I'm going to mostly try to focus in on that one bet that I also like best. Dual forecast, Suns Warriors plus 650 at BetMGM.
All right, let's go on to the Kings. We're going to do these last two pretty quickly because we don't have a lot on them. What's your 10 words on the Kings in your bet?
DeMar, Sabonis, they're really collecting all the mid-finity stones, under 46.5 on a lean.
Generational hater you are. Mine is, I thought I would like them more. I'm going to lean over, but I'm not going to bet it. Win total is 46.7. There's 147.5 in the market. I projected at 47.8, so I'm a little bit over of the 46.5. Divisions plus 270. Yes, playoffs is minus 145. No is plus 120. I thought that's interesting. Play-in is plus 135. That's a pretty good number. Seeding is 7.5, minus 110 both. Market did buy a little bit on the DeMar DeRozan is how I would kind of read that. Give me your big picture on the Kings.
Yeah, I mean, DeMar is the big picture. They brought in DeMar for Harrison Barnes effectively. So the question is, what do you do with that? How do you like Fox and DeMar and Sabonis? I think in particular, how do you like DeMar and Sabonis together? History for those guys, for both of those two, says high floor regular season, not a lot of ceiling, not a lot of defense. I think one thing to note here, not necessarily with the over-under, but I think is very sneakily in play. The Kings have traded their pick this year, but it is top 12 protected. The Kings certainly are not expecting that to be in play. I have them, by my projection, I have them under here. They are the number 12 pick. So I have this extremely in play. It's right on the cusp. And number 12 accidentally happens to be really interesting because it also happens to be if there are 5 worst teams in the West and then there are 7 in the East. So 5 means you made the play-in. The Kings make the play-in. They're at least not bottom 5. In the East, no bottom 5, so no play-ins. And then we'll assume that like the Bulls, Hornets, whoever, the bottom couple teams there are worse. So they're picking lower too. 7 and 5 is 12. You missed it by 1. So the Kings might be in a spot where they're like, in where I have them in the standings, I have them fighting for that 10 seed right at the end. So what do? Do you fight for the 10 seed and lose your draft pick? Or do you be like, well, do we really need the 10 seed? We'd rather keep our draft pick. It's on a cusp right there. That doesn't really play into the over-under because if you are fighting there, you're under 46.5 anyway. So I think it's interesting. I think it's worth noting. DeMar, Fox, Sabonis, what do you like about this group?
So, like, let's look at last year. They were 12th in offense, 13th in defense, and 14th in half-court offense last season. That's much better than I would have expected for this team. It needs to be noted they had the 4th toughest strength of schedule via dunks and threes, and they still wound up with a top 10 net rating. Like, there's a lot of signals this team was better than their record and a lot better than Brandon's giving them credit for, because Brandon was also out on the Kings 2 years ago when we went all in on him. I have them plus 3. Have them plus 3.6 in power rating offseason adjustment. Wow. That's mostly by addition by subtraction because Harrison Barnes was a negative and Davion Mitchell was a negative. So like this is kind of the inverse for me of the Suns, where it's like they got rid of a bunch of guys that that were honestly kind of drags on them. Harrison Barnes had the worst defensive rating on the team on court last season. The worst. And I made a comment of like, hey, Barnes can still kind of defend at a level, and Kings fans jumped down my fucking throat for it. And they were right, because when I went back and I did the research on it, including the film, they're right. Barnes was just a tire fire on defense last season. Keon Ellis really came on. He is one of the better defensive ratings on the team. He is a monster. Keon's he is tough as nails. He put him and Keegan together, and that's a really good defensive combo. They had the 5th best opponent shot location, but 21st actual. They got bad shooting luck by opponents. They were dead last in opponent corner 3 percentage. Teams just bombed from 3 on them. They gave up too many corner 3s, but they also some of the balance here is mostly just the stuff where they didn't give up that many, they shot an extremely high amount. And the stuff where they gave up too many, teams still shot pretty moderate. They got bad shot luck last year. De'Aaron Fox is incredible. He was incredible last season. The numbers are terrific. He got his 3-pointer in line. 50. He was 95th percentile on offense, including 87th percentile in plus minus for half court. Fox is a absolute monster. He had an 84th percentile assist percentage while also being 64th at the rim, 67th mid-range, and 56th from 3. And he played 36 minutes a game. Fox is a demon. The starters had a plus 6.1 net rating. It worked. Their starters were good, and they improved some of their depth. It might be as simple as the removal of negative players, resulting in something closer to net neutral in the non-Fox minutes. My cap is actually significantly not about DeMar DeRozan. It is not anti-DeMar. It is not pro-DeMar. It is largely you're going from Harrison Barnes, a net neutral, to DeMar, who's going to make some things better, some things worse. The overall will probably be closer to a little bit above average. I don't think they're going to kill. I don't think they're going to be shitty. I think they're going to be, like you mentioned, mid. But mid in the Western Conference is still a really pretty good team, and there's a bunch of teams fighting in that range. I think it's very possible that they go ahead and go over. Are there things you like about the Kings?
Yeah, I like that Fox and DeMar are clutch. They both usually their teams tend to go over their expected wins by a win or two. That's good if you like an over here. I like that the Kings were the number 1 offense 2 years ago. That obviously leaves some positive regression availability now. I think that they got less free throws last year. I think they shot worse, particularly Fox. Shot a lot worse on 2s. There's a lot of questions on this team on which one is the outlier. Is Fox being nails on 2s and clutch player of the year? Is that the normal Fox? Or is last year back to the mean that the normal Fox? I might, if I'm wrong here, it's because I'm picking the wrong outliers. Another outlier is the defense. You mentioned Keon Ellis. I have that as well. Last 19 games of the season last year, the Kings were 3rd in defensive rating. 3rd for the Sacramento Kings. However, here's what happened. EFG went from bottom 3 the entire rest of the season to top 3 the last 19 games. You said they had bad shooting luck. That screams incredibly good shooting luck over a 19-game stretch that I don't think comes back again. I think 19 games of incredible shooting luck versus 63 games of bad shooting defense. I'm going to go with the numbers. I'm going to take the more data there. So I might be wrong. Maybe things fundamentally changed. Maybe the defense is good, and that's not an outlier. Maybe Fox is elite, and that's not an outlier. That's where I'm at. I think DeMar, I agree with you that DeMar is a regular season value add. On this team, I think DeMar makes Sabonis work, and I think Sabonis is the best player on the team in the regular season for what he does for them. And DeMar and Sabonis both need the ball to do the thing. This team's offense shoots a ton of 3s. They're going to do less of that with DeMar out there. I think that they kind of hurt each other's value. I think they're going to actually neuter each other's value by the things that they do best. And then I don't believe the defense. I know the numbers. I just told you for the last 19 games, but there's not a lot of rim protection here. Not a lot of hope for me. They're number 1 in defensive rebounding, so maybe it's just that. Maybe it's just Sabonis racking up the rebounds, getting some turnovers. I don't think they're bad. I have them net rating 0, basically. And I'm even giving a little boost. So I have them at 42, 43 wins. A weird thing for me on this team, so I have them 12th on offense, 21st on defense. If you look for teams in the past that are fringe top 10 offense, fringe bottom 10 defense, it's extremely volatile. Here's some similar teams. Last year, Mavericks. Last year, Hawks. same profile, very different outcomes. Previous year, Clippers. Previous year, Jazz. Very different teams. The year before that, the Brooklyn Nets, who are pretty good. The Chicago Bulls, who are not pretty good. Like, you get a team in the 50s wins, you get some teams in the mid 30s. You basically have an average team, exactly average, with shooting luck or other luck measures. I can't really bet the Kings because of that, because they are one of my more volatile teams. Other than the Pelicans, this is my most volatile team in the NBA. So I can't bet it. I have them winning anywhere from 35 to 48 wins. So it's a huge range. I don't think they're very good. I don't know that they're very bad. They're just kind of an average team. And I think in the West, average is not good enough.
You mentioned DeRozan. He does have a nasty habit of making co-stars worse. I've been on this for a while. Aldridge really struggled with next to him in San Antonio. And Zach LaVine's fall to where he is started when DeMar DeRozan showed up. LaVine was on pace for being a really good player in this league. And then DeMar DeRozan showed up, and all of a sudden, Zach LaVine looks like shit. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think it's Sabonis, and I don't think it's Fox. I think Keegan Murray's the one that gets hurt the most.
I agree.
And that sucks because I like Keegan a lot more. But also, like, if you ask less from Keegan, maybe that's good. Like, hey, focus more on the defensive side. We need you to defend and hit threes, and Keegan can do that. It stunts him as a player, but it might be better for the team overall. Again, Keon Ellis is going to help with a lot. Fox is a plus defender. Keon Ellis is a plus defender. Like, I don't think you can argue really that Fox is a minus defender. He's a plus defender. Keon Ellis is a plus defender. Keegan's a plus defender. So you got 3 in the top 5. Sabonis is a huge negative. Like, the argument that Sabonis is the best player on the team is like, this is not where you come in, and I get it, but it's so much of it is like, he led the league in triple doubles, and I'm like, come on, guys, like, we can move past this. The defense might fall off a cliff. I will note this, that the King, you mentioned the rim protection thing. The Kings are actually 7th in rim rate defensively last season. They covered it systemically. They know what their weak points are, and they do a pretty good job of protecting it. They are not a team that's just like, because a lot of it's like, actually, to your credit, it's point of attack, man. Like, it's hard to get past their guys. And so if you can't get past their guys, they can cover for Demonis not being able to do anything once they get there until you get in the playoffs, at which point Domantas Sabonis is arguably an unplayable player. I've got one small one. So they had a positive PVAC difference. They should have won more games, right? That makes sense. 46 wins when they were where they were in 9th in net rating. Teams that missed the playoffs when they should have won more, they actually go under. It's 12-6. So that's your point, is like, yeah, they should have won more and they didn't, and it still wasn't good enough. And so the next season, they're just not good enough. Yeah. It's kind of the trend that we see there. I don't have like again, I wanted to like this team. I wanted to be in on them for division. I wanted to find different ways on them. I wanted the high outcomes because DeMar and Sabonis are such regular season players. I just couldn't get there with where the market's at on them. I think the market oddly overrates DeMar DeRozan and underrates some of the other elements, but it comes out as a wash to me. It's a no play. We go on Clippers?
Yeah, I think basically my play on the Kings is effectively my dual forecast. Like, I'm playing the other teams in division by just staying away from the Kings. Clippers, 10 words on the Clippers. I don't need all 10. Nah, man, we're not doing this again. Under 41.5, lean. I don't need the Clippers.
Mine is lyrics from a band called Weezer, and it's why bother? It's going to hurt me. It's going to hurt. It's going to kill when you desert me. That's it. No bet on the Clippers. So I want to start by doing a little bit of a victory lap, which was Clippers was my biggest division bet last year. It was my biggest winner in my portfolio last year. I hit them preseason. I said I enjoy pain, so I'm doing it again. When the Harden trade happened and they went in the tank and the market dropped out, I went on every podcast, every platform we have at Action, and gave out Clippers division winner.
You did.
So that was awesome. Their win total is 40.5. It's down 1.3 from open. The jig is up. People have figured this out. It's juiced towards the under here for the win total at 40.5. This is probably going to hit, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we get to 39.5. Plus 800 for the division. Seeding is 10.5, which I thought was interesting. Over is plus 100. Under's minus 120. Like, the books are pricing this as they're going to be the 10th seed that doesn't make it out of the play-in tournament, which sounds right to me. Give me the big picture for you for the Clippers.
Yeah, I think they're a couple of seeds worse than that. They're basically swapping out PG for Derek Jones Jr. and Nick Batum. So you can imagine how that swap is going to go for you. The Kawhi PG experiment is over. Kawhi is not over, I guess. We're trying to sell tickets, so we're doing the thing. Last year, December, January, my peak non-paying attention while I'm watching football playoffs, they went 23-5 and got everyone excited. The rest of the year, they were a 500 team, and now BG is gone. So there's a little bit of a Lakers thing here in that I talked about LeBron and Davis playing a lot of games last year. Kawhi played his most games since 2017. Guess when he didn't play? The playoffs or the Olympics. He's not healthy right now. Going into the season, not great. James Harden played his most games since leaving Houston. So we got rid of one of the 3 stars. The other 2 stars I project at about 30 less games. The rest of the roster is better than the Lakers roster, but no PG and less Kawhi and less Harden doesn't seem like the formula I would want if I were building a team. What do you like or not like about the Clippers?
I think the additions are really good. Like if you compare, like you were making the case for Mason Plumlee and Monte Morris, like the Clippers additions are way better. They got Mo Bamba, they got Batum again, who was really great with them, is still a viable NBA player. Chris Dunn is a really sneaky good NBA player on a very cheap contract, and Derek Jones Jr. was really good last year. Their additions are uniformly good. They're just not going to be as optimized as they were in other places. And they're not going to be as optimized as PG was. Like, it's just, it's hard to make the argument that that's like a net positive. You can't be like, hey, they made a bunch of good moves, but even though they lost Paul George, it's like they lost Paul George.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's. I agree. The guys that they're adding are better than the guys the Suns added, but we're talking about replacing Keita Bates-Diop and whoever on the Suns. We're talking about replacing Paul George here.
George, yeah. 43-24 with Kawhi last season. That's a 53 win pace. I'm sorry. They're a 51 win pace since 2020 when Kawhi plays and there's no Paul George. So if we go across all of the seasons since 2020, they are at a 51 win pace, even when Paul George does not play, when Kawhi does. The defense is still 6.8 points better with Kawhi on and off. So like Kawhi, even though I see a lot of like holes individually game by game, the impact for Kawhi is still huge defensively. They were only a point worse than that though with PG on versus off. So it was like Kawhi was better. PG was also really important. There's I guess a chance that Ty Lue figures out how to coach his team appropriately, especially with Russell Westbrook gone. I like some of their guys theoretically, even though all my numbers say that they suck, like Amir Coffey. That's it. That's all I got for things I like about this roster. What about you?
I mean, they're a number 4 offense 2 of the last 4 years. So that's the upside, is just elite shot making. However, they have made a lot of threes. They lost PG. He was their best 3-point shooter. They also lost Russell Westbrook, which I know doesn't feel like a loss. Russell Westbrook adds floor offensively. Like he gives you something so the things can't drop out totally. When they weren't the number 4 offense, the other 2 years, they were below average on net rating. They were 500 team in those years. And that was with Paul George still on the roster. So that's the downside. I think James Harden's still a little better than people think. Like, I think we all just totally left him for dead. I think he's still a good player. So, he's still around. Kawhi was getting MVP buzz last year. I thought that was a bit much, but he was playing well. I think he's not what he once was. It's the Steph thing where he can't get there enough anymore and stay healthy enough to get there, but he's still really good. I kind of like KPJ. Kevin Porter Jr. is back from Europe on this team. Just to shout out a name that maybe can make a difference here. I don't know. There's just not a lot else. Like, I think the team gets less health from the stars. The defense was below average last year. I think the guys do help on that end. Derek Jones Jr., Batum. I think those are good defensive players, but I got them at 18th on offense, 20th on defense. So basically where I had the Lakers. Same sort of numbers there. I have them about equal with the Lakers. I have them at -1.5 net rating, 37 wins. So that, you and I are going to disagree with the Lakers side of that, but basically just a little bit below 500. That's where I have this team. I just don't think they're interesting. I don't feel like I need to watch this team that much this year. I don't think they're bad enough to tank. They don't really have picks to do that stuff with anyway. They're just kind of trying to sell Steve Ballmer some tickets, and they don't really seem super interesting either direction.
If they weren't going to keep Paul George, I wrote this column. If they weren't going to keep Paul George, they should have traded Kawhi at the deadline.
Yeah.
No half measures. This is such a half measure ass team.
Yep.
PG was plus 9.1 in half court on off via cleaning the glass. That was 7th best in the league in half court on off differential. He was 98th percentile, minimum all players with 820 minutes played. Who's your leader on the squad? Kawhi? Is that your leader? Is that the guy that if things go sideways is going to get the locker room in order? Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think it's going to be James Harden? That's who you're counting on? This is ridiculous. When Kawhi's out, which he's going to miss time, the starters are probably James Harden, Terrence Mann, Norman Powell, Derrick Jones Jr., and Zubac. Yikes.
It's not great.
Yikes. 4 of their top 10 defensive EPM guys are gone. The defense might legitimately crater here, which would be weird with Kawhi. Maybe it's fine, right?
I think the guys they added, I think, are defenders. Chris Dunn is an elite guard defender. DJJ is defender. Batum's defender. So I'm less worried about the defense cratering. But yeah, it is whatever the opposite of cratering. There's not a lot of potential for the opposite of cratering happening. Like I don't know where the upside is here.
If they're not connected, I think it's going to get really rough.
Fair.
So anyway, my kind of conclusion here, I don't no play on him whatsoever. I don't have any interest in it. I can give you black swan events for the Suns, the Kings, the Lakers, and the Warriors for all those teams to go over. I can give you like Brandon Pajemski bumps. I can give you AD and LeBron. Both are stay healthy and connect is a guy. I can give you, hey, like DeMar and Sabonis became something really special, or Keon Ellis is a demon. We talked about all these kind of things. I can't for the Clippers. I don't know what the outlier is for everything works for them. It's all downside, but the number reflects that. So we're both out on the Clippers. You got anything else, or are we good?
Good.
Okay, that's gonna do it for buckets. This has been 90 minutes of the Pacific Division. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. We'll catch you guys next week when we get into the Southeast Division, Brandon's favorite, as well as we'll touch on the Southwest Division, which is going to be a fun one. We'll touch on those next week, as well as deep dives on some teams. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to check out youtube.com/theactionnetwork. We'll see you guys again next time. Till then, let's get buckets.